Welcome to Food Service Education. I'm Chef Michael Pesce, the content creator behind this channel. Recently, we had to take down a popular playlist at the request of the company that owned the material, as they wanted to keep it for in-person instruction only. Now, I'm excited to launch a new playlist, starting with this video, focused on safety and sanitation based on ServSafe guidelines. This playlist will break down essential information to help you study and pass your industry certification exam. I'll cut out the fluff and get straight to the key elements and concepts you need to master. For more in-depth content, check out our other playlists linked below. We strive to reach students worldwide with our diverse content, and this new playlist is just one of the ways we're doing that. All the content in this playlist is created and owned by me, Chef Pesce, and is exclusive to this channel. Make sure to check the description for additional information and consider subscribing to join our private members community. If you're ready to dive into today's content, let's get started.
All right, well, welcome to Food Service Education. My name is Chef Michael Pesce, and I am so excited that you guys are here. This new playlist is going to represent a entirely different lesson on safety and sanitation, or as my narrator said, cutting out all the fluff, all the added extra stuff that you just don't need to hear in order to study and pass your ServSafe or National Registry exam. You know, I've been a teacher years prior. I was in education for 10 years. It was always my desire to go back to the classroom and give back to students. And so I taught middle school and high school students safety and sanitation the same way I'm going to teach you it on here. Like I said, the only difference is I'm able to cut out the fluff because I have seen the test. I have taken the test myself numerous times. I know what's on the test because I am a certified instructor with ServSafe, and I'm also a certified examination proctor. All of these licenses, including my food service protection manager and my food service professional certification with National Registry Health Card. All these industry certifications that you hear me mentioning in today's video, I keep up to date. When it's time for me to recertify, I recertify. When it's time for me to go through the material on the proctor side, which is every couple of years, I go and I make sure that I keep all my licensure up to date. So that way, when I am teaching new concepts and principles, such as what you're going to hear today on this playlist, you can rest assured that this chef knows what he's talking about, and he's here for one reason and one reason only. You see, as an instructor in the culinary CTE world, I don't want to say forced, but I was expected to get students to pass an industry certification. So my students ranged from 6th grade all the way up to 12th grade. And you might be asking, what would a 6th grader need this information for if he or she isn't even able, they're too young enough to work? At the school I taught at, when I first started teaching, it was what we put our students through. We gave them a base foundation so that I guess when they went to high school, they were able to more likely be able to pass the industry certification. So, I want to welcome each and every single one of you. If you're new, consider subscribing to this community. 15,000 plus people watch this channel. And the beautiful thing is, when I designed this channel, it was originally to teach a more consistent approach to all my classes. And I have done just that. But now I'm reaching students all around the world. I'm reaching restaurateurs, restaurant owners. I'm reaching hospitality managers. You see, with ServSafe, I don't know how it is with National Registry, but with ServSafe, you have to renew your certification every 5 years. So you want to make sure you are able to come back to a page that is designed to teach you the principles you need, the updated principles you might need, to help you recertify so that you can go back to work and continue doing what you do in the workplace. All right. Whether you're here wanting to learn safety and sanitation or you're here trying to recertify, this place is for you. And Principles for Safe Kitchens is the new playlist. It is going to replace the SDC publication playlist that I was originally putting out every single month. The difference here is that I'm going to be chunking down the material, focusing on key elements to help you understand the foundations for what makes up the material, rather trying to teach you chapter by chapter. Okay? So, if you're ready, let's dive into it. We're going to start off like we always do in a classroom. We're going to start off with objectives. So, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the causes and transmission methods of a foodborne illness, enabling you to identify common pathogens and implement preventative measures to ensure food safety. One of the things I taught as I got closer and closer to ending my time as an educator, because I'm no longer a teacher in the classroom, rather, this is my classroom, was that common sense is not common. You're going to see a lot of things pop up on this channel, and you're going to be like, duh, doesn't that happen already? The truth of the matter is no. And the reason why safety courses like this exist is to ensure that students are learning preventative measures to ensure food safety. Okay? So today I want to keep things short. Okay? I don't want to take too much of your time. That's the purpose of chunking down the information rather than teaching the full on lecture. And I want to focus on 3 ways food becomes contaminated. Okay? Unsafe food is usually the result of contamination. Contamination can occur one or more of the following ways. Okay? It either happens through biological contamination, chemical contamination, or physical contamination. Those are the 3 things we're only going to focus on in today's lesson. Okay? So let's dive right into it. Let's start off with biological. What is a biological contaminant? It's caused by harmful microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Some of the things I want you to understand when you're going through this material is mistakes happen. Human error happens. Whether it happens intentionally or accidentally, it happens. Common sense isn't common. I just want you to think about where you're sitting or what you're doing as you view this material, whether you're viewing it on a cell phone or you're in a classroom setting, seeing it on the screen. I want you to take a look at your desk. Take a look at whatever your body is touching right now. Okay? Beneath that surface is microorganisms, a completely different world than you're used to seeing, right? Because with a microorganism, you cannot see, you cannot smell, and you cannot taste bacteria. You can't taste a virus. You can't taste fungi, okay? So that's what makes biological contamination extremely dangerous and harmful to food service operations, okay? Sometimes we don't even know we're doing it, but we're touching our hands or we're coughing into our hand or we're sneezing into our hand. And we may not think, oh, well, we're not sick, so I'm not really causing any form of harm here. If I just rinse my hands under water, it's going to be just fine. And the reality is it's not. Because a microorganism is something you can't see, smell, or taste. Remember that. Common sources include raw meat, eggs, and unpasteurized milk. I want to focus on unpasteurization, okay? Unpasteurized milk is milk that has not been heat treated to kill off bacteria. Now, being allergic is one thing. Being lactose intolerant is a completely different. When we heat treat, we kill off that bacteria, but we're also killing off enzymes that help our bodies break down milk. That's why some of us are lactose intolerant. Our bodies just can't digest the type of sugar found in milk when it's heat treated. So, you know, unpasteurized milk, some countries still deliver milk that way, and but here in America, everything has to be heat treated, even down to the juice. When you go onto a store or you go into a store and you see juice sitting on a store shelf, you see on the label this has been pasteurized. Pasteurization is killing off that bacteria. Remember, can't see, smell, or taste it. So we've got to kill it. And we do it by using heat. Now, sadly enough, and I know this looks gross, but sadly enough, I have worked in kitchens where these issues were all too common. These types of practices. Yes, working in an operation, seeing this and documenting it, there's a quote that I like to follow. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So you have to hope that your dots will connect someday. That's a Steve Jobs quote. And so all these years of working in kitchens, all these years of dealing with unsafe conditions have led me up to being able to now teach this information in the proper sense. To teach you that common sense can be common if used and executed properly, but in today's society, where workers just most likely care about just going to work and getting a paycheck, common sense is not so common. And that's why, like I said, material like this exists. Okay? So sadly enough, I worked in kitchens where these issues are all too common. For example, chicken that was way past its use by date or expiration date. It became a breeding ground for harmful microorganisms. And just so you know, I think that this chicken was left out in the refrigerator during hurricane season when school was closed and when school was losing power. Okay? And it was left in the refrigerator when we came back by another instructor. And so I took it upon myself to take pictures to document this information so that I had evidential evidence to bring to my administration and try to shed light on the importance of why this is being done and why instructors need to be held to an accountable source when it came to what we were teaching our students. So when I showed this to administrations, obviously they thought it was absolutely gross and they said, well, did you throw it out? And we said, of course. But the reality is, this happened all too often, and it got to a point where administration just did not like me constantly going to them to shed this information. I've had my fair share of ups and downs as an instructor and as a teacher, and unfortunately, I am now in a position where I can teach this material and shed light on past experiences. This was absolutely horrendous to look at, and it was disgusting. But you know what? I turned it into a lifelong lesson. When I was an instructor back in the day, I taught my students the importance of why this can be incredibly dangerous. And that's why you see a student wearing gloves, holding this, and what you don't see is the student making a face, completely in disregard, waiting to throw it out. Okay? Consuming anything remotely close to something like this will probably result in hospitalization or potentially death. And 4,000 people die every single year from a foodborne illness. That's why safety and sanitation is paramount, not just in the classroom, not just at a young age, not just as a reinforcement on a monthly or annual basis. It's important that we understand how we keep food safe. And you might be saying, like I said, you might be saying to yourself, common sense is common, but it's not. It's not common. Okay? And so this highlights the critical importance of strict food safety practices to prevent such dangerous situations as you see in this image. Let's talk about chemical. Okay? Caused by harmful chemicals such as cleaning agents, pesticides, and certain metals like a pewter. Here's an example of a pewter, okay? Copper, metal, okay? A pewter can, because of the type of metal that is used, if it's not coated properly, it can actually cause a contamination. For the lack of the better, the metal, the type of metal can cause harmful agents to seep into food. We want to make sure that for prevention, we want to make sure that we're keeping chemicals away from food at all times. I've worked in an operation before where chemicals were stored out. They weren't being used. They had their covers on them. It was a degreaser, for instance, an oven cleaner, to be more specific. It was sitting next to a bag of unopened flour. And when the health department walked in, they saw that and they cited us for it. So, one of the things I want you to take away from this lesson is that keep food with food and cleaning supplies with cleaning supplies. Never put them together. It's crucial, okay? Absolutely crucial. Before I go on to the next slide, I want you to understand and highlight the keyword pewter. Understand the keyword like pewter will pop up on a ServSafe test. National Registry, 50-50 chance, but definitely on a ServSafe exam. That's why I really want to encourage you to check out YouTube Shorts as I go into depth and focus a little bit more on information like this so that you can study for your exam. Okay? All right, let's talk about more examples. Okay, cleaning supplies such as sanitizers must be stored either below food surfaces or well away from food, like I just said. It is crucial to be vigilant about this process because if the health department finds cleaning supplies near your food, it will result in serious health code violations. This not only jeopardizes the safety of the food, but also puts the entire establishment at risk of fines, shutdowns, and or reputational damage. Okay? Damage to your brand, damage to your establishment. So, when food is, for instance, we'll take a look at the image here. The guy is cleaning, he's sanitizing the surfaces that food was just on. A lot of times I see students in the past, they would spray their surfaces. And I've always recommended that you spray onto a cloth away from food and then you wipe those food contact surfaces. Okay, rather than spray the surface, because mist particles, what goes up must come down. Very good. Okay, can land onto food and in high dosages can sometimes cause severe illness. Okay, so we've talked about 3 ways food becomes contaminated. We've talked about biological, chemical. Now we're going to get to the nitty gritty, the physical aspect. Okay, caused by foreign objects like hair, glass, and metal shavings. Prevention is proper food handling and regular equipment maintenance. Now, these are formal students of mine. This was what it was like to teach in a classroom. And you can see that some of them are wearing hats. Some of them are wearing hairnets. The ladies have their hair pulled back for the most part, except this one right over here. But there's a critical reason why hats or hairnets are mandatory in food operations. They prevent hair from contaminating food, from falling into food, right? Hair has no place in the kitchen or on food surfaces. And wearing these protective coverings ensures that hair stays where it belongs, off the food and out of the kitchen. Okay. Another example, and I know this is going to be gross, but the reason why the culinary operation or the industry has moved away from beige bandages and into the blue bandages is because sometimes a band-aid could fall off and go into food. And you might say, ill, that's gross, and it is gross, and you have every right to think and imagine that. It has happened, and blue is easier to catch by eye than serving potato salad and finding out that there's a beige band-aid that blended in with other product. One of the last things you want to find in food. Okay, so you're seeing a lot of the operation move towards blue bandages. When you're wearing a bandage like this, you're supposed to put a finger cot over the bandage to prevent, you heard the key word, prevent a physical contamination. Okay. All right, let's do some review questions. I'm going to let you pause the video here. Um, there's going to be two sections of this. There is going to be the questions that you see on the screen here. And as an instructor, if you want to pause this video now, you can. Okay. Also check the description. There will be a timestamp so that you can skip around to the actual answers and go a little bit more into depth into this material with your students. We're chunking down the information to make this easier for you to understand. Okay? Physical, biological, and chemical. 3 ways food becomes contaminated. So take a second, either write the question and answer it. This is a quick exercise to review what you just learned, and then unpause so you can go on to the next section. All right, so I want to review some of this information with you. So let's talk about a response to the chemical contamination section, right? We asked questions: how can improper storage of cleaning agents and pesticides in the kitchen environment lead to chemical contamination of food? And then question 2 was: what step could take to ensure that all kitchen utensils and equipment are free and harmful of chemicals like a pewter? Okay. So chemical contamination occurs when harmful chemicals such as cleaning agents, pesticides, or certain metals like a pewter get into food. You ever use aluminum and garlic? Saute that. Ever go through that experiment and see what happens to the color change of the garlic because it's reacting with the metal? It actually turns green. So this can happen through improper storage or use of non-food grade utensils. To prevent this, always store chemicals away from food and use appropriate kitchen tools. Okay, so that's kind of like a summary of both questions into one. In the biological contamination section, we talked about what are some common practices in a kitchen that can prevent the growth of harmful microorganisms on food. Again, that's the type of bacteria we can't see, smell, or taste. So what can we do to prevent, or what practices can we take to prevent that from occurring? And then also question 2, can you describe a situation where biological contamination might occur and how you would address it to ensure food safety? The answer to that is biological contamination is caused by harmful microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, and fungi, which can come from raw meat, eggs, or unpasteurized milk. These pathogens can multiply rapidly under the right conditions, and we're going to talk about that further into other chapters or other sections that we cover in this playlist. But to prevent this by practicing proper hygiene, cooking food thoroughly, and avoiding cross-contamination. Now, just to give you a little insight of what cross-contamination is, it is the transfer of bacteria from one surface to another. Give someone a hug, you've just actually transferred bacteria from yourself to the person. Touch your phone, take your phone into the bathroom, take your phone everywhere you go. You are cross-contaminating even when you think you're not. Even if you've washed your hands and touched a doorknob to go back into a classroom or picked up that phone, you've just cross-contaminated because it is the transfer of bacteria from one surface to another. Let's talk about physical contamination. So, what measures can be implemented in a kitchen to minimize the risk of physical contaminants such as hair, glass, or metal shavings from getting into food? Now, you're probably saying, Chef, how does metal get into food? When you open up cans, a number 10 can, which is a big ass can, okay? Sometimes you can shave off a piece of metal and that can fall into food. And if you ingest that can cause severe health issues. It will slice your stomach up, your intestines up, because, right, what goes in must come out, right? So, can you provide an example of a physical contamination incident? We just did, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that and discuss how it could be prevented through better food handling practices. So, physical contamination happens when foreign objects such as hair, glass, or metal shavings end up in food, like I just told you. This can occur through poor handling practices or equipment maintenance. Okay. To avoid this, ensure proper food handling, wearing protective gears like hats or hairnets, and regularly inspecting kitchen equipment for wear and tear. Okay. All right. So, again, I hope you got value. These are the things that we covered in this section. There's going to be a whole slew of information for you to go through. Remember, the concept of this playlist is to teach you everything I know about safety and sanitation using ServSafe as the guide, right? That's the foundation, and using my experience, combining the two together to teach you everything in a condensed version. So if you got value out of today's video, smash the like button. The more you like this video, instructors, the more you like this video, students, the more YouTube will put this out in front of someone else looking for the same type of material. You have questions, put them in the comments below. I always try to find on my back end things that might not appear because a question might be held for review. Or if a question does pop up, I always respond. Okay? One of the biggest things you'll get from me on this channel is my engagement. So if you have questions, put them down below and I'll be happy to respond to them. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the next video.